The twin suns of Xylaria hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the gleaming towers of the city. The arena, a vast structure of shimmering metal and crystal, stood at its center. For the citizens of Xylaria, it was more than a place of sport. It was the heart of their culture, a stage where skill, strategy, and courage were displayed. And today it was the day Kayla would face her first public test. Kayla, a Xylaran, stretched her long, graceful limbs in the quiet of her quarters. Her violet skin shimmered faintly in the early light, and her eyes, bright, sharp, and full of thought, betrayed the storm of emotions inside her. She was a gladiator, but unlike others, she had never enjoyed the thrill of battle. Fighting humans she refused to even consider. The very idea felt wrong. She turned her gaze toward the small hollow projector on her table, which flickered to life with a soft hum. Eli's face appeared, smiling warmly. "Kayla," he said, his voice gentle, "you don't have to do this today if you don't want to. They can't force you to fight." Kayla smiled, but it was tinged with worry. "I know, Eli, but if I refuse, the arena officials won't let me go easily. I don't want trouble, or for anyone to think I am weak." Eli reached out, though the hologram could not touch her. "You're not weak. You're brave. You make your own rules, Kayla. That's what I love about you." Her heart warmed at his words, and she whispered softly, "I just hope I can prove it today." The arena corridors were bustling when Kayla arrived. Other gladiators prepared for the competitions ahead, moving with practiced grace. The air was filled with the hum of energy shields, the clatter of equipment, and the distant cheers of early spectators. Yet Kayla felt a strange calmness. She did not want to fight today, or ever, but she could not deny the weight of her choices. The arena official, a tall Xylaran with golden markings across his shoulders, approached. "Kayla," he said, his voice formal, "your presence is requested in the central stage. The council wishes to see your commitment. Will you fight as ordered?" Kayla straightened, meeting his gaze. "I will not fight humans," she said, simply. A murmur ran through the crowd nearby. Some stared in disbelief, others in admiration. The official's eyes narrowed. "This is not a request, Kayla. You must follow the council's rules." "I will follow my own rules," she replied calmly. "I do not fight humans. Never have. Never will." The official's expression hardened. He left without another word, and Kayla stepped into the arena. The sun glinted off the transparent barrier that separated the spectators from the stage. Thousands of eyes watched her, curious, skeptical, and amazed. Kayla walked to the center of the arena, her head held high. The stage beneath her feet was smooth, almost like liquid crystal, shifting slightly as if alive. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the crowd. She saw faces of every kind, Xylarans, humans, and other species, each waiting to see what she would do. A voice boomed from the arena speakers. "Kayla, champion of Xylaria, today you face the trial of choice. Will you fight, or will you defy the council?" Kayla's heart beat faster, but she forced herself to remain calm. She remembered Eli's words, his faith in her. Taking a deep breath, she spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "I will not fight humans. I refuse to harm them. I will not betray what I believe is right." The arena fell silent for a moment. Then slowly a ripple of applause began, growing louder and louder. Some cheered her courage. Some shook their heads in disbelief, but Kayla did not falter. In the crowd, Eli's holographic assistant whispered a message to him. His face tightened as he read it. Something about the council's next move. A warning that Kayla had to hear. He tried to reach her, but the barrier made it impossible. All he could do was watch and hope. Kayla took a slow step forward, considering her options. She was a gladiator trained for physical contests, but she had always relied on strategy, speed, and intelligence rather than force. Today she would need every bit of it. The arena changed around her. Platforms rose from the ground, creating obstacles and pathways. Lights danced across the walls and holographic targets floated in midair. The test was clear. It was not a simple fight. The council wanted to see how she would respond to a challenge designed to force her into conflict. Kayla's violet eyes scanned the arena. She noticed patterns in the movements of the platforms, the timing of the holograms. A plan began to form. She did not have to fight humans to succeed. She only needed to demonstrate her skill, her mind, and her courage. As she took a deep breath, Kayla felt a presence behind her. It was not threatening, but familiar and comforting. Eli had somehow projected a small holographic message directly to her visor. "Trust yourself, Kayla. You are stronger than they realize." She nodded silently, grateful. With a final glance at the crowd, she stepped forward. Her feet touched the first moving platform, and she began to navigate the arena. Each step was precise, calculated, and graceful. She leaped over gaps, dodged obstacles, and solved puzzles that the arena presented. The spectators watched in awe, realizing that Kayla's strength was not in violence. It was in thought, creativity, and courage. By the time she reached the UI center again, sweat beaded on her brow and her limbs ached, but her eyes shone with triumph. She had faced the council's test without harming a single human, and she had shown the crowd what true bravery looked like. As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow over the arena, Kayla stood tall. She did not yet know what challenges awaited her tomorrow, or how the council would respond, but one thing was clear. She had made her choice, and she would never regret it. And somewhere in the crowd, Eli smiled, proud of the alien who had captured not only his heart but the hearts of everyone watching. Ethan woke to a strange silence. The cell was cold, dim, and unfamiliar. The walls were made of black metal, smooth and hard, reflecting no light. He rubbed his wrists, sore from the chains and the rough handling. His mind raced with questions. How could he survive in a place like this? What did Warlord Kator want from him? A heavy door clanged open and two of Kator's guards entered. Their eyes glowed faint red, and their claws clicked against the floor. Ethan rose slowly, trying to appear calm, though fear tightened his chest. "You are to face your test, human," one of the guards growled. "Survive or perish." "What test?" Ethan asked, trying to sound steady. "You will see," the guard replied, shoving him forward. "The Warlord is curious about you. He wants proof that a human can survive. You will fight for life." Before Ethan could protest, the guards pulled him down a long corridor. The walls were lined with strange machines, some buzzing with energy. The air smelled of ozone and something metallic. His heart thumped in his chest. He had no weapons, no armor, only his mind, and whatever courage he could summon. The corridor ended in a massive chamber. High above, lights shone like distant stars. The floor was uneven, covered with sand, rocks, and strange plants that glowed faintly. And there, waiting, were the creatures. They were monstrous, four-legged, covered in scales, eyes glowing yellow. Their claws were long as swords, their teeth sharp as knives. The air vibrated with their low growls. Ethan swallowed hard. He had faced dangers before, pirates, storms in space, but never like this. Never creatures born to hunt and kill. The guards pushed him forward. "Your time begins," one said. Stepping back, Ethan stood still, taking in his surroundings. Panic tried to rise, but he forced it down. He had to think. He had no strength to fight them directly. But maybe he didn't need to. The creatures lunged. Ethan ducked and rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the first one. Sand flew into the air. The second creature hissed and charged. Ethan grabbed a jagged rock from the floor, throwing it to distract it. The creature swerved, confused for a moment. "Okay," Ethan muttered to himself. "Think. Don't panic. Look for patterns." He noticed something. The creatures moved fast, in short bursts, then paused. Their vision seemed based on movement. He realized he could use that. Staying still, he could avoid detection. Ethan led them carefully, stepping from rock to rock, ducking behind low walls, and keeping to the shadows. He used his small size and speed to his advantage. One creature tripped over a glowing plant, giving him time to jump onto a higher ledge. Hours or maybe minutes, he wasn't sure, passed. Ethan was exhausted, breathing hard but alive. He had no weapons, no allies, and no real plan, yet he survived. The creatures became frustrated, growling, sniffing, and slamming into obstacles. Finally, a loud horn sounded, echoing through the chamber. The creatures froze, then retreated to hidden tunnels. The doors above opened, and Kator's deep voice boomed, "Impressive, little human. You have survived. Longer than I expected." Ethan looked up. The warlord stood on a platform, above the chamber, massive and terrifying. His golden eyes glimmered with curiosity, and his armored body seemed unmovable. "You see," Kator said, "most creatures in this galaxy die instantly when faced with such challenges. You endured. You are small, fragile, yet you adapt." Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead. "I survived because I had no choice," he said. "A human never gives up even when the odds are impossible." Kator leaned closer, a faint grin appearing on his jagged face. "Interesting. Do you think that is courage or desperation?" Ethan stared back. "Maybe both." The warlord laughed, a sound like rolling stone. "Perhaps. I will allow you to live on for now, but you will not escape untested. You will face other trials, each on." Ethan awoke to a dull, humming vibration under his feet. The cell was colder than before. The faint glow from the ceiling gave him just enough light to see his chains, still heavy and biting into his wrists. His body ached from the previous test, but the fire inside him had only grown. He was alive. That meant he had a chance. The heavy cell door clanged open. Kator's guards were waiting. Their claws clicked on the metal floor as they motioned for Ethan to follow. He rose slowly, muscles stiff but his mind sharp. "You survived," one of the guards said. "Do not think that pleases the warlord. Survival only brings new trials." Ethan forced a calm expression. "Then I'll survive the next one too." The guards did not respond. They simply led him down a long corridor lined with massive glass windows. Beyond the glass, Ethan could see fleets of warships, some burning, some patrolling, all under Kator's command. The scale of this warlord's power made his chest tighten. He was small, alone, and trapped in an empire that spanned galaxies. Then the corridor opened into a massive chamber. At its center, Kator waited, seated on a throne made of black metal and bone-like structures. He leaned forward, eyes glowing, studying Ethan like a predator watching a curious insect. "You are brave, human," Kator said. "But bravery is meaningless without choice. You may serve me. You may entertain my court. You may amuse me as a proof of your species' weakness, or you may refuse and watch your world burn." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. His mind raced. Earth's colonies, his friends, millions of humans scattered across space. If he refused, Kator could destroy them without hesitation. And yet, to serve, to humiliate himself and all humans, was impossible. "I will not serve you," Ethan said firmly, meeting Kator's gaze. The warlord's eyes narrowed. "Bold words, words that would cost you everything. Do you truly understand the meaning of refusal?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "Refusal does not mean death. It means strength. And humans have strength you cannot break." Kator laughed, a sound that shook the walls. "You are a puzzle I will enjoy unraveling. So be it. Refuse, and you shall be tested. You will face the impossible. And if you survive, perhaps you will teach me something." The guards grabbed Ethan and led him to another chamber. This one was even harsher. The floor was jagged rock, slick with water. Pools of dark liquid reflected faint light, creating illusions that made the path treacherous. Strange creatures prowled the edges, some blind, some hunting by scent. "Your first choice," Kator's voice boomed from above, "is simple. You may walk freely toward the exit if you survive the dangers in front of you, or you may refuse and face my wrath in ways you cannot imagine." Ethan took a deep breath. There was no exit, no escape without danger, but he had learned one thing: running was useless. Survival depended on thinking, observing, and acting at the right moment. He began to move carefully. Every step was deliberate. He watched the creatures, noticing their patterns, the way they responded to light and sound. One misstep could mean death, but Ethan was patient. He remembered the first test, how creatures, no matter how strong, had weaknesses. Hours passed, though it felt like days. Ethan ducked, rolled, and climbed over obstacles. He used the environment to his advantage, creating distractions with loose stones and broken metal. Every small success gave him confidence. Every creature that lunged and failed reminded him intelligence and courage could overcome brute force. Finally, he reached a small platform, elevated above the dangerous floor. He paused, breathing hard. Kator's voice echoed from above. "You are clever. I will give you that. But cleverness alone will not save you forever." Ethan looked up. The warlord's golden eyes glimmered with curiosity and something else. Respect. It was faint, almost unnoticeable. But it was there. Kator had never seen a human survive like this. And survival, not obedience, was what made this human dangerous. "You have a choice," Kator said again. "Obey me, or continue these futile trials. Choose wisely, little human." Ethan clenched his fists. His choice was clear. He would not obey. He would not serve. His mind raced, planning for what came next. The trials would grow harder. The warlord would test everything: strength, intelligence, loyalty, fear. But humans had survived against impossible odds before, and they could do it again. He whispered to himself, quiet enough that no one could hear. "I may be defenseless. I may be alone, but I am not powerless. My fate is mine, not his." Kator's guards returned, this time not to guide him, but to observe. Ethan noticed a subtle change in their behavior. Some of them, creatures enslaved for centuries, watched him with curiosity. A few even whispered to each other, questioning why a fragile human could endure. Ethan realized something important. Even in chains, even in captivity, he could inspire. Strength was not only in the body, it was in the mind. It was in courage, and sometimes it was in hope. The platform shook as Kator's voice boomed again. "You have survived, for now. But remember, human, your choice has consequences. Every action will be tested, every decision measured. And your world watches, waiting to see if your species is truly worth keeping." Ethan nodded silently. The test was far from over. The chains of choice bound him tightly, but he refused to let them break his spirit. He had survived the impossible once, and he would survive again, because humans were not slaves to fate. They were masters of their own destiny. Ethan sat in his small cell listening to the distant hum of Kator's warship. The memory of the previous trials lingered like a shadow. Creatures, traps, near-death experiences. Every moment tested, his body and mind. Yet, despite the exhaustion, he felt something new stirring inside. Determination. He was no longer just surviving for himself. He was surviving for every creature and human trapped under the warlord's rule. Outside the cell, he heard footsteps. Not the heavy steps of Kator's guards, but lighter, careful movements. Strange whispers reached his ears. Curious, Ethan pressed himself against the wall, straining to listen. "They survived," one voice whispered. "Yes," replied another. "A human. Against the impossible." How? Ethan realized that even in chains, his actions were making waves. The prisoners around him were watching. Some were hopeless, some frightened, but a few were inspired. A spark of rebellion had begun. The guards opened his cell door. Ethan stood slowly, chains rattling. The room beyond was larger than he expected, filled with alien prisoners, some with wings, some with multiple arms, all showing signs of despair. The guard stepped aside, leaving him among them. "You will speak," one said. "The warlord is curious. Entertain us, human." Ethan hesitated. He had no weapons. He could not fight. But words were his strength. He stepped forward. "I am a human," he began, his voice steady. "And we survive when others cannot. We endure when hope seems gone. You may think us weak, but weakness is only in the eyes of those who have never faced true hardship." The prisoners looked at him with surprise. No human had ever spoken to them here with such confidence. Ethan continued, "You may be slaves. You may have lost everything. But inside you still have a choice. You can rise, you can fight, even small acts, clever moves, they can change everything." The room was silent for a moment. Then a prisoner with 4 arms stepped forward. You make it sound possible," they said. "Even here?" "Yes," Ethan said. "Even here." He looked around the room, meeting each pair of eyes. "You may not have weapons. You may not have strength. But you have your minds. You have courage. And that is more dangerous than anything Kator wields." A murmur spread through the prisoners. Whispers became conversations. Conversations became plans. The spark had grown into a flicker of hope. Later, when the guards returned, Ethan had already begun subtle acts of rebellion. Loose stones were hidden in corners. Broken chains were tested for weakness. Observations of guard patterns were memorized. Every small detail could be used in the coming days. The warlord's curiosity grew. Kator appeared above the chamber on his balcony, watching Ethan with golden eyes. "You inspire," he said, his voice like rumbling thunder. "Tell me, human, is this cleverness or chaos?" Ethan did not bow. He did not flinch. "It is truth. Even the weakest can make a difference." Kator's expression was unreadable. Humans were known for their unpredictability, but Ethan's defiance was remarkable, perhaps even dangerous. In the following days, Ethan carefully taught prisoners what he had learned: how to move without being seen, how to create distractions, how to work together despite fear. Each small lesson was a seed of rebellion. They practiced quietly, hidden from the guards. The more the aliens learned, the more their courage grew. Ethan realized that strength was contagious. One act of defiance inspired another. One clever idea spread to dozens. Kator's empire was built on fear and obedience, but even fear could be challenged one mind at a time. One night, Ethan overheard a guard whispering to another, "The human, he is changing them." They listen. Another replied, "It is impossible. Weaklings cannot become strong." Ethan smiled quietly. Change was always possible. The very next day, the prisoners enacted their first test. A simple diversion in the corridors allowed a small group to avoid patrols. Nothing deadly yet, but enough to prove their courage and to show Kator that his subjects were not entirely under control. Kator watched from above, frowning. "Interesting," he muttered. "I expected obedience, not strategy." Echoing he was observed took a moment to speak directly to the warship shook as it passed through the dark void of space. Inside, Ethan moved silently through the narrow corridors, chains clinking softly at his wrists. The rebellion he had sparked among the prisoners was growing, but Kator's vigilance was unmatched. Every corner was monitored, every action watched. One mistake could mean the end, not only for Ethan, but for all the prisoners who now relied on him. He paused at a junction, listening. Footsteps approached, deep and methodical. Kator's elite guards. Ethan pressed himself against the wall, thinking quickly. The rebellion had taught the prisoners to act discreetly, but now it was time for boldness. The guards passed, unaware of the small device Ethan had set moments earlier. It emitted a high-pitched frequency, disorienting them just enough for him to slip into a storage room. Inside, crates of alien weapons and tools were stacked haphazardly. He examined them quickly, his mind calculating. Even without experience with alien technology, he could use their confusion and unpredictability to his advantage. Kator's voice suddenly echoed through the corridor, booming and omnipresent. "Human, you have caused disruption among my subjects. You have inspired them. This cannot continue. I will make an example of you before the fleet." Ethan's stomach tightened, An example meant death, or worse, a display of power that would crush morale among the prisoners. But he did not panic. Fear was expected. Desperation was expected. Humans survived because they could act despite fear. He moved quickly, breaking down part of a crate and picking up what resembled a small portable energy device. It hummed faintly in his hands, dangerous but manageable. This would be enough to create a distraction, a chance. The prisoners were gathered in the central chamber, their eyes wide with fear and hope. Kator appeared on the balcony above, his golden eyes glowing with fury. His armor gleamed sharp and imposing, and behind him rows of his fleet officers watched in silence. The warlord's presence alone could crush the spirit of any ordinary being. Ethan stepped forward, chains still around his wrists. His heart pounded, but his mind was calm. He raised the device slightly, signaling to the hidden prisoners. One by one they moved in the shadows, ready to act. "You think you are clever, human," Kator said, voice echoing like rolling stone. "But cleverness will not save you from death." Ethan met Kator's gaze without flinching. "Maybe not," he said, "but courage can." With a swift motion, the device emitted a bright pulse of energy, knocking out the guards in the immediate area. Chaos erupted. Alien prisoners, trained in secrecy by Ethan, sprang into action, using makeshift tools and strategies to disable weapons and barriers. Shouts and growls filled the chamber as confusion spread like wildfire. Kator's eyes narrowed. "So, this is your rebellion. Bold, foolish, but bold." He leaped from the balcony, landing with a force that shook the floor. The guards immediately formed a defensive perimeter, but Kator moved through them like a storm. His presence was overwhelming, yet Ethan did not retreat. He had learned that humans could survive by using their mind, their surroundings, and the trust of others. The duel began, not with weapons, but with tactics. Kator struck, powerful and swift. Ethan dodged, rolling behind crates and using the narrow spaces to limit the warlord's advantage. He threw small objects, creating distractions. Every move was precise, every decision calculated. The prisoners watched, hearts pounding as their leader faced the greatest threat in the galaxy and refused to yield. Kator's voice boomed again. "You are clever, I admit it, but cleverness alone cannot defeat me." Ethan's reply was calm, firm, almost a whisper. "No, not cleverness alone. Humans survive with hope, with will, and with each other." The prisoners pressed forward, using their knowledge of the ship and the distractions Ethan had created. They sabotaged doors, disabled weapons, and surrounded the warlord. Kator, massive and fierce, roared in fury, but even he could not control every angle at once. Ethan seized the moment. Using a combination of agility and observation, he maneuvered behind Kator, guiding the warlord toward a trap the prisoners had prepared, a pit with energy nets designed to hold even the strongest opponent. Kator struggled, golden eyes blazing, but the human and his allies had planned every detail. The warlord fell into the net, unable to escape immediately. Silence filled the chamber. The prisoners stared, disbelieving. Kator, the conqueror of galaxies, caught in a trap of his own design. Ethan stepped forward, still cautious but confident. "You see, Kator," he said, voice steady. "Your strength is not absolute. You can control the body but not the mind. You can strike fear but you cannot destroy hope. And humans, we never surrender it." The warlord struggled in the net, massive limbs thrashing. His roar shook the chamber. "You defy me. You dare to triumph over me?" Ethan met his gaze without fear. "I am not alone. Look around. They believe. They fight. Your empire does not belong to one tyrant. It belongs to the courage of those you underestimate." Kator's expression flickered. Anger, surprise, and perhaps something else. Respect. Even a warlord used to domination could recognize the power of a united, determined people. Ethan did not strike. He could have ended Kator, but he chose restraint. Execution would have sent a message of cruelty, not freedom. Instead, he stepped back, allowing the prisoners to see the warlord trapped, defeated by courage, intelligence, and unity. The chamber erupted in cheers and cries of relief. The prisoners were free, not only from chains but from fear. The rebellion had succeeded, not through sheer force, but through strategy, courage, and hope. Ethan looked around at the faces of the aliens and humans alike. Some were wounded, some exhausted, but all were alive. They had survived together. They had turned the impossible into reality. And as Kator's golden eyes glimmered with fury and curiosity, Ethan whispered to himself, "Fate may have been mine to endure, but freedom is ours to claim." The chamber was filled with the sound of celebration. Prisoners cheered quietly at first, then louder, as the realization sank in. They were free. The chains that bound their wrists and ankles, the fear that had haunted them for so long, were gone. And at the center of it all stood Ethan Cross, a human who had once been defenseless, now a symbol of courage and hope. Kator's golden eyes glimmered from the energy net, fury and disbelief etched into his massive face. He had been the terror of galaxies, feared across systems, and yet here he was, trapped, bested not by weapons or armies, but by strategy, unity, and the stubborn human spirit. You have won this round, human," Kator growled, his voice like rolling stone. "But do not think this changes anything. My empire, my fleets, I am not so easily defeated." Ethan stepped closer, his chains now removed, his shoulders straight. "You may be strong, Kator, but strength alone does not rule the galaxy. Power is nothing without respect, and respect cannot be forced. You can crush bodies, but you cannot crush hope." The prisoners gathered around Ethan, their faces a mix of awe and relief. They had seen what seemed impossible, a human standing up to the greatest warlord of the galaxy, leading them to freedom. And now they were beginning to understand that courage could be stronger than any weapon. Kator struggled in the net, trying to break free, but the prisoners had reinforced it with alien technology and sheer ingenuity. His massive limbs thrashed, and sparks flew from the energy restraints. Yet Ethan did not move to strike him. Humans had survived countless battles, endured countless trials, and learned that true strength often lay in mercy, not revenge. "You could destroy me," Ethan said calmly. "You could prove your power in a single strike. But that is not how humans survive. We survive by thinking, by planning, by inspiring others to act with us. Killing you now would make me like you, and I am not like you." The warlord's golden eyes narrowed, a mixture of anger and confusion. He had never been denied his victory, nor had he ever faced defiance so deliberate, so intelligent. He had always relied on fear, domination, and brute strength. And now, those tools had failed. The prisoners began moving through the warship, taking control of sections that had been tightly guarded. Aliens who had once been terrified of Kator's wrath now followed Ethan's lead. Even some of Kator's own officers hesitated, unsure whether to intervene. They had seen the human endure the impossible, and now they questioned the infallibility of their warlord. Ethan realized the true power of what had begun. This was more than rebellion, it was transformation. He had sparked courage, created unity, and shown that even the smallest, weakest beings could shape the fate of an empire. He walked among the prisoners, checking on each one. "Stay focused," he said softly. "We are free, but we are not safe yet. Kator is strong, and his fleet still exists. We must secure the ship and prepare for what comes next." The prisoners nodded. For the first time, they felt a sense of control over their destiny. They were no longer pawns in a tyrant's game. They were active players capable of change. Kator's voice echoed through the hall. "You are clever, human. I underestimated you. But even cleverness cannot defeat me forever. I am not finished." Ethan met the warlord's gaze without fear. "Perhaps not," he said. "But I am not finished either. You may have been my captor, Kator, but you do not own my fate. And now, you do not own the fate of those I have inspired." The warlord growled, his frustration boiling, but he realized something here considered. Humans were UNP.